Hi folks, wasn't supposed to be doing a video today, but I've been reading a few articles and going over a bit of the content that I've been doing over the past couple of days, as I like to do in my downtime sometimes. And I've come across a few things and a few comments that I think are worth going over from certain people in the community. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to put your comments on blast on here or anything. But you've made me think. You've made me like take a second look at the things that I've been looking at over the past few days. So this is going to be about overpowered armies and when they're actually overpowered, especially when it comes to things like 10th edition. I've not written a script for this. This is going to be me chewing the fat, talking some nonsense, and getting it out in front of you. If you like what I do, the subscribe button is down below. You can get 5% off of your models at Composite Games if you want to get any models. But for now, this isn't going to be a very long video, and I don't want to be doing very many long ad reads because this is a very, shall I say, I don't want to say low effort, but I'm just sitting here with a cup of tea. I've had a little thought, and I thought to myself, do you know what? Instead of me sitting here and thinking about this kind of a thing on my own, why don't I get my thought process out in a video? I don't have a video planned for today. I don't have a script written. All of my stuff is for tomorrow. We're doing Hobby Nightmares tomorrow, and then I'm going to do another video over the weekend. So today was my day off, but I thought, you know what? Let's just jump on and have a little look at this. So, a few of you have come to me with some concerns about the army rules that have not been leaked, but Games Workshop have actually shown us. This is the actual Games Workshop site here. So Games Workshop have actually come out on the 7th of April and started showing us some rules. And a few of you, quite a lot of you actually, who have messaged me on Discord and have given me comments on YouTube videos, have said, hey, these rules, they look pretty overpowered to me. And that took me back a little bit. I thought, what do you mean overpowered? It seems like a really cool rule to me. And then somebody said, yes, but North, you play Space Marines as your main. Okay? You play as Grey Knights as your main, so you're going to get access to these rules, and so, of course, they would be cool to you. But try taking this from an Imperial Guard perspective, or a Eldar perspective, or an Orc perspective, right? Now, let's have a little look at the wording of these rules. The first thing I wanted to go into, though, we have to remember, these are only a snapshot of the rules for two factions. One for the Tyranids, and one for the Space Marines. And these aren't, shall we say, stratagems that you can do faction by faction. These are, the big boilerplate stratagems, right? So as they say in the article, right, on top of this, every faction gets an army ability, regardless of which one you're using. This represents, here we go, the totemic aspect of that faction in war. So, for me, I would suggest that rules like the Orcs War, or the Synapse of the Tyranids, or the Astra Militarum Orders, or the Space Marines Oath of Moment, and whatever your faction equivalent is of those things, is going to be very powerful. And this is what I mean. I'm very, very, very tentative about coming in on a negative on Games Workshop for things that they're showing us this early on. We don't have the full picture yet, guys. We don't know how overpowered this Adeptus Astartes rule is. We only know how overpowered it would be if it was in the current setting of 40k. But don't forget, right? They've taken away the wide-ranging Armour of Contempt now. It's now a function that you need to do. It's now an actual stratagem that you need to do. That's a big part of the Space Marine power block taken away. They've taken that away. You actually have to activate it now and use command points to activate it, and remember to activate it. It's not something you just get as standard, okay? That's a big nerf, considering where we are at the moment with Space Marines, okay? So, what I mean to say is be very, very, very careful when you start throwing your toys out the pram and saying, out the stroller if you're America, and then saying, hey, this is overpowered. We don't know yet. Quite frankly, we don't know yet where this is going and how this is going to fit in, okay? We need to give people the benefit of the doubt. I'm somebody, as you know, who isn't huge on Games Workshop most of the time in terms of their business practices and the way they treat their customers and the people who work for them. But at the same time, I'm not somebody, I'm all about fairness. I want it to be fair. I want to sit here and give you an honest opinion of what I think is a really cool rule. And I think Oath of Moment, as it stands, is a cool rule. Let's read into it, and you tell me if you think it's overpowered. If your army faction is Adeptus Astartes, Space Marines, at the start of your command phase, select one unit from your opponent's army. Until the start of your next command phase, each time a model from your army with this ability makes an attack that targets that enemy unit, you can re-roll the hit roll and you can re-roll the wound roll. Okay? So you get to re-roll your hits and wounds against that one unit. Okay, cool. So, this may seem very overpowered at the moment. But the thing is, we're not playing 9th anymore. This rule is for 10th edition. So we don't know how powerful certain units are going to be. Would you really use this against an Eldar Guardian unit? No, probably not, unless they're holding an objective that you really need. Okay, you're going to use it against the big beefy targets, aren't you? But we don't know how beefy those big beefy targets are going to be, because every single unit in the game has been rebalanced and repurposed for 10th edition. So, what I'm saying is you may be right, you may be completely correct, and Games Workshop are jumping the shark yet again and giving rules for certain armies that don't need super powerful rules to come in and that actually have an unfair advantage over other armies. I get that, and I get the fact that we shouldn't just blindly trust Games Workshop. I get that. But you can also go into 10th edition with cautious optimism, I think, at this moment in time. This rule in 8th edition and 9th edition would be way overpowered. It would. Considering the toys that Space Marines have at their disposal, this would be absolutely overpowered. Don't get me wrong as well. You also have Devastator squads, the Firstborn Devastator squads. If this rule was in 9th edition, you wouldn't be able to get hold of Devastator squads for love nor money. Everybody would buy them for tournaments. Everybody would buy them for tournaments because you have 5 las cannons in a Devastator squad. You literally choose a target, put Oath of Moment on it, delete, gone. Absolutely gone. You fire it, and you can fire everything at it that has Adeptus Astartes, and you'll get rerolls with everything, and you only really need to throw the las cannons at them if it still hasn't gone down, right? It's a delete button. The one thing that I am worried about, right, is Imperial Knights and things like that. Imagine, if you will, you're playing against a shooting heavy Astartes army. Let's say Ultramarines or Iron Hands, something like that. And your opponent says, right, I'm using Oath of Moment against one of your knights. And 2 or 3 heavy weapon squads open fire on your knight, and in one round of shooting, it's blown off the face of the earth. That is what will happen in 9th edition if we have Oath of Moment in there. The point is, how far do you want to trust Games Workshop to actually rebalance the game to make sure that Oath of Moment is powerful, just like every other army rule is supposed to be powerful, but it's not overly powerful. It's not just a lazy delete button. Okay? Let's move on to the Tyranid, shall we? Let's see if this is as powerful. Alright. So they get the different detachment rules as well. So, you know, we're not doing the army rule for Tyranids. We're doing the detachment rules, which are different. So you get to take different detachments, different combinations of model. I don't think these are combinations of models, actually, which is even better. I think the detachments are literally, you select whatever models you want to, and you say they're a certain detachment. So, let's say Skyhammer, for instance, was a detachment of Space Marines. You could have any models in your Space Marine army and say, this is a Skyhammer detachment, and they're going to get access to the Skyhammer detachment rules, right? So, these are the detachment rules for the Tyranid invasion fleet. Okay, so these are the different detachment hyper adaptations. So, with Tyranids, you get 3, as standard, for this one invasion fleet detachment rule, you get 3 different rules to pick and choose, right, as you're going through the game. At the start of the first battle round, select one of the following hyper adaptations to be active with Tyranid units for your army until the end of the battle. And I will tell you now, there will be something in the Tyranid Codex when it comes out that will let you switch between these. Okay? That's what they did with 9th, and that's what I think they will do with 8th. There will be something in the Tyranid Codex coming out where you get to switch between Swarming Instincts, Hyper Aggression, and High Predators during the game. It's not there right at the start from what we know, but, you know, going forwards. Anyway, Swarming Instincts. Each time a Tyranid's model with this hyper adaptation makes an attack that targets an enemy infantry or swarm unit, that attack has the sustained hits 1 ability. Basically, for every time you roll a 6 to hit, you get another hit. Lovely stuff, right? Means you're really good at taking down swarms, taking down infantry blocks, things like that. Fantastic. Lovely stuff. Again, Very, very, very similar, in fact, to the army rule. It's a bit less powerful, but at the end of the day, it's a detachment rule, not an army rule. So it's very similar in power to Oath of Moment. Okay? But it's just more specialised. That's what I like about it. Detachment rules are supposed to be more specialised versions of the army rules. Each army has one army rule that lets it do something cool, and the detachment rules are rules that are below that in terms of power, but the more gettable, right? The more you're able to do it. These are passives, essentially. This is activated, right? This is activated. This is a passive. You just get this sort of a thing. I actually don't think this costs any command points, actually. So I think this is passive as well, which makes it even more powerful, to be honest with you. You don't actually have to activate it at all. But anyway, moving on. Hyper-aggression. Each time a Tyranid's model with this hyper-adaptation makes an attack that targets an enemy monster or vehicle, a vehicle unit, that attack has the lethal hits ability. Okay. From what I know, when you roll a 6, you automatically get a wound. When you roll a 6 to hit, you automatically make a wound against that vehicle or whatever it is you're targeting. That's great for things with super high toughness, right? You're swarming this thing, you're throwing your life away to get in there and chew it to bits. Love that stuff. And that is an incredibly powerful rule. Do you like Gilliman? Well, I'm afraid he's now Tyranid food. I'm sorry. You know? Again, if these rules are in 9th edition, they are incredibly powerful, bordering on overpowered. There's nothing bordering about this. This is way overpowered if it's in 9th edition. But these are bordering overpowered if they're in 9th edition. Again, the thing is, guys, we're not in 10th edition yet. We don't know how these rules will play, okay? High Predators. Each time a Tyranid's model with this hyper-adaptation makes an attack that targets an enemy character unit, if a critical hit is scored, as in you roll a 6 to hit, that attack has the precision ability. I'm not sure what that does. I'm assuming it's something similar to lethal hits. But anyway, maybe it takes away their armor save or whatever it does. I don't know. Probably does. It probably does take away their armor save, to be honest with you, if you're going against characters who normally have very good armor saves, and maybe it actually takes down their invulnerable save. That'd be cool. Anyway, all very powerful rules, right? And in 9th edition, you'd be like, what? That's so overpowered if you weren't playing against this army. If your Tyranid player could take one of these rules and do this for the entire game, that's incredible. Like, if you are a knight army, once again, and you're against a swarm Tyranid player with hyper-aggression, you're done. You're done. Like, there's literally nothing to do with that. You're literally pinpointed and you're all over with that kind of a thing, right? So the wording of it is not great. And this is what I mean, is that we can't give people I don't want to say leeway, because leeway sounds like we're talking about people taking advantage of the way that things are written, which is like a pretty scummy thing to do, but it does happen. As we all know, it happens. It does happen all the time. People come in and they want to do their own rules, or they have a liberal interpretation of the rules and things like that, and how things are written. I've even had people do it with certain bits of law, where they liberally interpret law to mean what they want it to mean, instead of what it actually says on the page, you know? So anyway, I'm not sure where we are in terms of balance, and this is the point I'm trying to make. Neither are you. We're not there yet. We're getting certain bits of rules and certain bits of tidbits coming in that we know from 10th edition that's going to be part of the game going forwards. What we can't do is start throwing out our pacifiers, throwing out our toys out of the pram and saying, this is ridiculous, why? Because, see, here's Armour of Contempt, right? We no longer get Armour of Contempt now, so they're taking it away. And maybe it's only with this one task force that you get Armour of Contempt. We don't know yet. Okay? We simply don't know yet. This used to be across the board, Marines. It should be across the board. This rule was yours in 9th edition, and you didn't have to do anything for it. Now you actually got to activate it, spend a command point, and probably take this Gladius task force, which has rules in it that you might not want. It might not. That detachment might have detachment rules that you don't really want, but it's the only detachment that has Armour of Contempt. We don't know how this is going to be pulled in and essentially made a thing in 10th edition. It seems like all of these things, like Artificer Armour, Like, even relics are becoming certain things that you can only get for certain armies and things like that, right? So, anyway, moving on. I just think that we need to be giving not Games Workshop a huge benefit of the doubt, because we know what they're like. That was me, by the way, the old WhatsApp. What I do think, though, is that we need to be very, very, very careful in the feedback we're giving back, and the alacrity and the speed that we are giving it back at. Okay, we know very little of 10th edition, and for all we know, this could be the edition to end them all. I don't think it will be, of course. You know me, I'm a realist when it comes to Games Workshop. I don't really trust them that much, but at the same time, I'm willing to give the entire edition benefit of the doubt until I see more rules. None of these rules are overpowered in 10th edition because we don't know any of the other rules for 10th edition. What I will say is that if we're going by the lore, okay, look at this. Rerolls are significantly less common in the new edition, so the ability to single out one target per round for a complete annihilation reinforces the Space Marines' reputation for disciplined, targeted hammer strikes. If every army rule that we see is a really powerful rule that also really hammers home what your army does in the lore, that's great, and I've always wanted that in the game. So I'm not going to sit here and say it's overpowered when it's something that should be in the game. We should be seeing different armies do different things in very powerful ways. Give them time. Give them a bit of leeway. Let's have a good read of these rules as they're coming out before we decide something's overpowered. Because some of y'all, I'm not going to lie, some of the responses have been a bit pathetic. Probably not you, if you have been annoyed about it, but some of y'all have taken one look at this Oath of Moment and one look at these detachment rules and said, wow, they're overpowered. Yes, they are, simpleton. They're overpowered in 9th edition. Doesn't mean they're going to be overpowered in 10th, though. Right? Do I mean you should give Games Workshop all of your trust? Of course not. Again, these are probably going to be woefully overpowered rules. Let's not be ridiculously over the top, right? With our praise of Games Workshop and our defense of them. But at the same time, we don't know the rest of the rules yet. For all we know, every single person you're going to want to use Oath of Moment on will be able to stand up to it to a certain degree. They won't just get deleted at the top of the turn that you do Oath of Moment. You don't know yet. I want to have a look at the rules. I want to have a really good deep dive when they come out about what's going on, and then go into it. That's my advice to you. Don't let your own cynicism ruin your enjoyment of this hobby. Okay? Don't let it ruin it. Have fun. Read the rules. Read the lore. And if they're going down this road of, hey, if the lore says you're good at something, you'll be good at it in the game. I'm all for that. That's my main bugbear with Warhammer. So, love you a long time. I will speak to you tomorrow for some more Hobby Nightmares. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Have a good one. Bye.